Coming up on our next installment of America's Hope, it was a devastating hurricane with a deathly blow to the Bahamas. In our next installment, we'll focus on the after effects of Hurricane Dorian 4 years later and see how you, the American people, can help people in need. On our next America's Hope. And welcome to America's Hope. Many times on this program, we've talked about people in crisis. We've looked at Israel being at war, and certainly there's a crisis going on there. We also focused on Maui and what was unfolding there after the devastating fire that went through the island in Lahaina. And of course, we have focused on hurricanes. And one of the great disasters that took place for the Bahamas was Hurricane Dorian. That happened about 5 years ago. Some of you may recall as you look at these images of what unfolded there. And when that happened, many people tried to rush in to help. But you see, when Dorian hit, we were also at the height of COVID. And after the hurricane hit, some people responded, but because of COVID, many people forgot. And so now in Abaco, the place that took the direct impact from Hurricane Dorian, there are still many people trying to rebound and rebuild their lives, devastated by the winds of that huge storm that pummeled the island. Joining me now is a man who has not forgotten the good people of Abaco and the Bahamas. He is Randy Crow. Randy Crow is a pastor. He's retired now after serving 50 years with 4 churches. His last church, by the way, was on the island of Abaco in the Bahamas. And he joins us now. He's known as the island pastor for the Bahamas. Pastor Crow, it's good of you to join us this hour. I'd like to ask you how you and your wife, Paula, are reaching out to help people from where you live now in sunny Florida.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for having us. We continue to reach out using DC-3s and private pilots. I'm a private pilot, fly a Cherokee 6 airplane. Went into the Bahamas 8 days after the hurricane just to be able to get into our people of the church where I pastored. And been able to raise lots and lots of funds and give it to the people there in the Bahamas. And we continue to do that even today.
How difficult is it for the people living on the island? Because as I stated before, they didn't get all the help that they usually see other countries like the Puerto Rico, which of course is a part of the United States, but the Bahamas is one of our close neighbors in the Caribbean. They didn't get the kind of help that they so desperately needed.
No, because the hurricane hit in September 1 of 19, but then so did COVID hit in March of 20. And so that put a devastating halt to a lot of our teams going in, a lot of supplies going in. And you remember we were in America having the supply shortages. And then we were trying to buy supplies to send to the people down there. And it became a big bottleneck for a few months there. It was even hard to get in. You had to do COVID tests before we would fly in. Then we would fly in. We'd have to get a COVID test 5 days after we were there. And then 3 days before we flew back, you'd have to get a COVID test. And, many of those islands don't have those COVID tests on that island. You would have to go to another island to be able to get those. So it became a very difficult time without a doubt.
And so the situation there right now, are there people able to function, or are they still in dire need of just the basic material things? For example, electricity and power and food and all kinds of other supplies to help rebuild their homes, which are flattened by the winds of Dorian.
Yeah, Kelly, we were able to send in a lot of supplies in the last 4 to 5 years now. So we're, on path. So, we have put our church where I pastored back together. We were able through Island Outreach and so many people around the country and the world gave over $250,000 that we were able to give to the people of the Bahamas and allowed them to give it to the people on the islands over there. So, we've been able to do a whole lot. Now we're continuing to still do that. But most people are back up. Electricity is up and running, but it's spotty. But
Mm.
that's typical for out island ministries because we're talking about the out islands, not Nassau, not necessarily Freeport, but the small out islands that are of the Bahamas, and they struggle with that electricity stuff.
And how are the people doing? I mean, you've obviously seen the people go through this and they're rebounding, as you stated. How are they doing, or are they still dealing with the devastation?
It's they're still dealing with some of the devastation, but most of that has been somewhat rebuilt. By no means is it back to normal any more than where hurricanes hit over in Florida and Naples, Fort Myers, all through there. There's still remnants of the disaster that is there. Many houses was blown down. Many people are still struggling. One of the things we were able to do with that money, we gave $10,000 to every widow and widower on this particular
Mm.
island where I pastored. And then we also gave $10,000 to the single ladies that had never married. To help them get their feet back on the ground and get started just a little bit. We couldn't build everybody's house back for 250, $300,000, but we were able to help them get some relief.
So you're on this program. We've met a couple that owned a business there, and they're slowly but surely rebuilding. And they talked about the plight of what they were going through, and the fact that they needed more support, not just for themselves to rebuild their business, but for others to rebuild their homes and get their life back together. It's good that you're doing those things to reach out to widows as well as single women and even single mothers, for that example. I want to ask you, you're with Island Outreach, and how can people reach out to help you reach out to those in Abaco?
Go to islandoutreach.com. You can make donations through that website right there. And Kelly, the neat thing is, no one gets paid from Island Outreach. It is a full giveaway ministry. And that's the way it was set up to begin with, and it still ran that way even today. So, if someone gives $1, it's going to go to the out islands to help the people that are struggling there. And the couple you was mentioning that lost their home and their business, they were members of my church there when I pastored for those 12 years. Wonderful couple.
Pastor Randy Crow, there's still hope for the people in Abaco. What's your hope for America and the Bahamas?
Boy, our prayers are every day for our leadership. I mean, I always tell folks I can't fix Washington, but I can sure pray for them, and that's all I can do and vote. But other than that, I can't go up and fix it. I wish I could. Pastors like to fix things, but I can't do that. But we're praying for America without a doubt.
And for the good folks down in Abaco?
Absolutely. They're always on our minds. I talk to them probably once or twice a week down there. We're still sending funds, we're still sending teams, and we're still sending different things, supplies, and all in there, using all the ships, airplanes, and everything we do, and carrying them in.
It sounds like a lot of Americans are working with you because they care. I've got to go, but I want to just reminded me of something. When the hurricane hit Puerto Rico, I went down and I started working to help report on some of the churches that were devastated by the impact of the hurricane that swept through Puerto Rico. And I saw many volunteers there, volunteers who would use their vacation time to go and
Yes.
spend time in paradise. And I saw the same thing with New Orleans after Katrina. Is that something that you would encourage Americans to do who want to get to the Bahamas and say, well, if you're coming to the Bahamas, come to Abaco through our ministry and reach out and help people while you're doing something good for yourself and for others, enjoying a slice of paradise?
That's exactly what happens. We've sent so many teams in. Missionary Flights International out of Fort Pierce, Florida, have DC-3s, and they carry folks in. They carry supplies in, and we're still doing that. Matter of fact, we one of those DC-3s is that two of those DC-3s are in Haiti today, carrying in mission teams
Wow.
that we're a part of. So yes, it's happening now, continuing to happen, and we'll do all we can to keep helping the people of the islands.
Well, don't be surprised if you see someone from our team, America's Hope, joining you on one of those trips to help out the people in the islands or some of the other places you go. Randy Crow,
Man, we'd look forward
the
to
island
it.
pastor. I appreciate you.
Hey.
Thank you so much, man. When America's Hope returns, we'll talk to Russ Jones and his involvement in helping people in the Bahamas. And welcome back to America's Hope. I'm introducing to you now Russ Jones. He's involved in helping the people in the Bahamas in the wake of Hurricane Dorian, which hit there 4 years ago. Russ, tell me where you are and why you're reaching out to Americans, fellow Americans, to remember what happened in the Bahamas 5 years ago and why it's so necessary for all of us to step up and try to provide help where we can.
Well, Kelly, great to be with you. I was here actually just a couple of months before the hurricane hit in 2019, and every place we walked has been devastated by this hurricane. It was the worst that hit this area in its history, and hundreds, if not thousands, the number's really difficult to quantify, lost everything and possibly even died. There are so many people that are still missing. And right now I'm in Marsh Harbor at the Conch Inn with friends Michael and Nancy Alberry, and we have gotten to know each other at the little key across the way called Man of War, where I've been preaching for the past 3 weeks and gotten to know this community quite well. And many are still trying to rebuild after all of this time. And what happens, Kelly, as you know, is really good organizations, NGOs, organizations like Samaritan's Purse come in, they do all the immediate relief, they stay, volunteers come, but then everybody goes home. And that's where we are right now. Even all these years later, you can drive down the street, there are ruins still here. It's not like back in the United States where things get put back together relatively quickly. Here you can drive, most people had no insurance because insurance companies just don't insure well this kind of area, even though it's paradise. I'm looking at paradise right here. So they've either had to not rebuild or spend months and years trying to pull together the finances to rebuild. So back when this initially happened, we helped raise thousands of dollars for this community, and they're still in need. So that's where we are today.
And how can organizations in America pick up the ball or pick up the mantle and carry it in order to provide more help to the people in that region? Organizations like Operation Blessing, Samaritan's Purse, Convoy of Hope, and other organizations that seek to help people around the world when they're impacted by natural disasters like Hurricane Dorian.
Well, we're working with Island Outreach, which is based in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And Pastor Randy actually pastored the church that I'm preaching at for 12 years. Him and his wife, Paula, were there. And they have a ministry that has been helping. And folks could reach out and help through islandoutreach.com. But we have a way of hosting volunteers to come over here and do some work. There was a beautiful little cottage over at the church that's no longer there. And it was a place where pastors and worship leaders like yourself, Kelly, I'm planting a seed. They would love to meet you, that could come and stay. Well, that's no longer there. So the Conch Inn over here where we're staying right now, they needed to figure out a way to get their business going again to generate revenue. And they've been slowly doing that. As you can imagine, everything that comes here has to come on a boat.
Yeah,
which is expensive. And so we're helping to recast the vision of this place that so many people call home. And a lot of Americans see it as a vacation kind of destination, but the people here work hard. They They have a love of the Lord, which is just amazing. You can say God bless you to somebody, and it's well received. I spoke at a couple of schools, and they actually wanted me to quote scripture, which is very different than back home.
Indeed, it is. I recall being in the Bahamas not too long ago for a campaign called Bahamas for Jesus, and it was quite a remarkable event. But what really struck me was going into the school system and seeing children do what we used to do in America, and that's openly pray in school, as well as acknowledge their faith in God and in country. And I think it's indicative of what we may have lost here in America, yet we continue to hold on to hope, not only for America, but for our neighbors. And certainly the Bahamas has been a neighbor to America for many, many years. You talked about it being the vacation land for many US citizens. And what I like about what you're doing is that you're not there just to spend time vacationing. You are there to roll up your sleeves and help people in their most desperate hour. So, again, if you could send out that plea to Americans to think about how they can use their vacation time wisely to enjoy a piece of paradise and at the same time give peace, give hope, give help, give understanding to the people who actually live there.
And New Life Bible Church on Manawar Key is kind of the hub for that kind of activity to take place, where people can come, they can worship. It's an outpost to send people to various places that need help. And I've been seeing people that have put their homes back together, but I've met a number of people that you go inside their home and it's just a shell still. So it's really heartbreaking. And what we're here to do is just remind people that these natural disasters happen, and we're seeing people that they're still dealing with some of their anger, but they don't know who are you angry at a natural disaster. It's a real situation, and PTSD and issues of just grief. So we're also getting to see people put life back together, and it's just taking a lot longer than anyone had thought, because that hurricane hovered over this area. It crawled for almost 3 days.
It did. It did. It pummeled the area and it lingered there, which is unusual. And it's something you don't expect to happen in that region. It usually just brushes it. But this time it really made a direct hit on the Bahamas. I feel the pain through your voice. We're going to be talking to a couple that has experienced the pain in just a few moments. But Russ, I got to tell you, I thank you for what you're doing. You and your wife, Jackie, the great work that you're doing there, along with the church in Florida. And I'm glad that you made a call to me to say, hey, we need to provide some hope to our neighbors to the south of us. And the Bahamas, it's not that far away from the coast of Florida, as you know. And I caught your drift, planting the seed in me to do something. I will get there as soon as I possibly can to offer whatever help that I can as well. America's Hope would like to be there to show that hope is ever present, even in the midst of despair. Russ, I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to the couple that you've been working with on the ground there, and we'll hear from them directly about how much of an impact this hurricane has been and how the impact lingers on. Coming back next with more on America's Hope. And the two people I'm introducing you to now know it all too well, and they're very familiar with the pain and the devastation that has been a result of this hurricane hovering over the Bahamas for at least 3 days, and those strong winds and that strong surf causing a lot of flooding and actually wiping some homes off the face of the map, ending up in the ocean. Michael and Nancy Albury join me now. And first of all, my heart continues to go out to you for the fact that you've had to endure this. A lot of times when hurricanes hit, people get over it rather quickly in the United States, but yet the effects of it still linger here in the United States. So I can only imagine what it's been like for you in your neck of the woods in the Bahamas. Talk to me about that day when Dorian hit and what you had to go through.
Like so many others, you lose
the definition of losing everything means different things to different people. If you have a flood in your house and all your furniture gets wet and your car gets destroyed, and you feel like you're losing everything. And then in our case, our business and house and vehicles and everything, and that was lost. So we felt like we lost everything. But then you talk to friends and certainly employees and close friends that actually lost family members, then you start to feel the pain of what everything really feels like.
Nancy, your husband is correct. You start to understand what everything feels like. At the end of the day, you two still have each other, and you're able to embrace this and deal with this together. But for some of your neighbors, they were not as fortunate. They lost loved ones. How has that affected you and Michael?
So, we have been trying to decide what to do because we lost our house, our guest house, everything, that we had worked for 65 years. And we decided we better build back our business because then we could ultimately have the income to, start to rebuild our house. But we even lost our clothes. I lost my wedding ring, that went away. But, things that we were able to say, okay, it's stuff. And in the end, while we've rebuilt our business, our home is just a rebuild of our laundry room. And it's really small, but you realize how little you really need in life. And if we have each other, that's huge.
Yeah, the chic of downsizing or being a minimalist, it wasn't our choice, but it's actually pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
What's remarkable is that the two of you have this resolve within you to realize that what's really important is to have each other. And we're all accustomed to the amenities that we have once we accumulate wealth or a nice house, but that can be gone in the blink of an eye, as both of you have learned.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I would like to get across is, don't get attached to stuff, because no matter how secure you think it is, it can be taken, and maybe we should really focus, on the important things, more often.
And prayer has really been important in our lives.
I did want to,
If you don't know, when your house is blown out from under you, which our house was, and it exploded with us in it. And we ended up in a little bathroom right off of the living room, and we could hear, the noise. There's tremendous noise in a hurricane. It's just horrifying. And you finally, you open the door and you see there's nothing left.
It's like the tornado movies where you open the door and it's just open sky outside.
Yeah, so trying to go from that to knowing that all of your neighbors have lost everything, and our employees have, nobody knows where to put stuff. Even if you found something, you don't have anywhere to put it. You have nothing under you. But I've always told people that if you don't know how to pray in some situation like that, you learn really fast.
Yeah, 7 out of the 9 houses on our street went down. But I know this is, you don't have unlimited time, and I really wanted to take the opportunity to express, there's categories of people, or the financial categories of people with resources. There's also logistics of people that, we're blessed to live on Mount War, where we have exposure to second homeowners, and we had connections with the Billy Graham Foundation, which got us into Samaritan's Purse quickly, CAM Ministries, Christian Aid Ministries. But there's lots of communities, lots of people in those communities that don't have that exposure. And those people didn't get the help that we got. So there's still a lot of people that are hurting. They haven't rebuilt back. They're still living in either tents or little makeshift domes that really need some help, and they might not have they do not have the exposure that you've given us today. So we wanted to make sure that there's still lots of information out there of people that need help.
How can we in America provide that help in order to help alleviate the stress and anxiety that many people still deal with some 4 years later? I mean, how can we help out in terms of helping the structure there, the infrastructure, the shelters, the airport, the rebuilding, the food, everything that has to go into rebuilding a community?
Well, there's different things pull on different heartstrings. So, we have medical facilities that need help. We have individuals that need help, and we have infrastructure that needs help. All of those things can funnel through. One of the charities that was working with us is a Pastor Randy Crow, and his organization is Island Outreach, and they're in Fort Pierce, and they're also tied in with Missionary Flights International, which flies freight planes out here. They go to Haiti, but they come to the Bahamas as well. So 100% of the donations that go through Island Outreach, which is a 501c3, U.S. tax exempt corporation, comes directly to us, and you can earmark whether you want it to go to widows and orphans, whether you want it to go to a school, whether you want it to go to infrastructure. So we really don't like to push where people want to donate money, because like I said, different heartstrings for different people, but all of those areas really need some help. And Pastor Randy Crow there's a board of directors that can steer that money to wherever you would like it, to go, as needs in those three areas.
Yeah, Michael, I appreciate that. Nancy, let me ask you a question. Not that I want you to take me back to that day and the devastation that took place, but you and Michael are quite concerned about the members of your community. And I find that admirable, that it's not just about you, but it's about the entire island and the people living on that island trying to revive their lives and make a rebound. That day that it happened, and you recall the two of you being in your bathroom and then opening up the door and realizing you no longer had a home. What was your immediate effort to help others, realizing that others were experiencing the same plight? And in some cases, if they weren't as financially well off, their burden was even worse in some ways.
That's sort of a hard question, because initially all you're trying to do is survive. And so we're trying to get out of the rubble, get down the street, get to someplace that, would be safe. Well, our neighbors, I guess about 4 or 5 houses down from us, said, come in, we've got other people in our house, maybe we'll be okay here, because all of the other houses were down on our street. So there were about 4 families that ended up taking refuge in this one house, and that house actually started to go. So, there's, I don't know, maybe 20 of us, and we're pretty terrified that the roof is going to go as well. And so we're trying to bolster each other up, come on, we're going to be okay. We're going to manage, we're going to get through this. And so you do what you can, because you had nothing else you could do, but just try and, let people know that you can help. However, and everybody needs something different.
Once the storm was over, particularly in Manawar, we knew we would be okay. We live in a community where if it's one loaf of bread, we all get a slice. We had our own water supplies underneath our tank and things like that. After the storm, when we came to Marsh Harbor, we talked to our former employees about how could we help them with what little we had left. It seemed to be a pretty unanimous thing of try to get your business back up, provide jobs so we can have a steady income, and we can know we're going to have money on a weekly basis. So that helped us make our decision to rebuild.
Where do you stand right now in the rebuilding of your business?
We're staying in one of the hotel rooms of what we're building back. We also had a laundry room back in Manawar, so we'll go there on the weekends. That was the smallest building we had, so we were able to repair that pretty quickly.
So let me ask you, what I see here is that there's a lot of hope that's burned into and etched into your way of thinking in order to help you through these desperate times. How does hope prevail within you, and how do you spread that to others who are working in your same community and living in your community?
That's a tough question. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who just need somebody to help them. Help me clean my yard. Help me rebuild my house. There were a couple of houses that were rebuilt for the widows on the island, and that was a big deal. So they now have a place to live. One of the ladies has passed, and what do we do with this property now? But there's so many questions that come up that you can't anticipate. On a little island, you have to rebuild everything. We have to rebuild the school, the medical, everything has to get rebuilt. And so trying to help, like I say, everybody has something different, but having volunteers that come and maybe can replace a roof. You can't get electricity without a proper roof and being approved by the government. There are still people in Marsh Harbor that don't have electricity 4 years later. They don't have a roof. They haven't been approved.
Yeah. But if it was mentioned earlier about people that come on vacation doing working vacations, whether they're therapists, whether they're a carpenter, whether they're, can be a carpenter's help. During that window, these disasters have a news cycle of all people. I know you know that.
I know that.
Unfortunately, our news cycle was really cut short with COVID, and so when we would have had that opportunity where church groups and civic groups would have come to help and were scheduled to come to help, they were not able to come. And so by the end of COVID, which was a long spell, as you know, we were out of the news cycle. Those people had made other plans, and unfortunately, we missed a great opportunity for a lot of volunteer work to come in. And it would be exciting to see that restarted. And I'm not sure where we start on that, but I think it would take some effort on, different groups. But we would love to see, Pastor Randy and Missionary Flights International out of Fort Pierce they're dedicated to try to get that started as well. So if you're out there and you're a youth pastor in a church, or you're working with a civic group, and you have young or even not so young people that are skilled, we would love to have you come to the Bahamas, come to the Abacos, and help out. We would be more than willing to steer you in the right direction.
Well, Michael and Nancy Albury, first of all, my prayers are with you. My heart is leaning so much in your direction to pray that you are safe and well, and that your island will be rebuilt. And certainly, I appreciate you sounding the alarm that you're sending like a distress signal out. And I'm sure that many people watching this program will watch it and hear it and rally to the cause to bring hope, healing, and much needed help to your island, as well as to other islands throughout the Bahamas. And I like the fact that you have been able to work so closely with your community to rebuild your business, although it takes time. I know that you're still living, where is it, out of your laundry room now?
Yeah.
Meantime, I want to send an SOS to all the organizations that have helped you in the past, that they return and try to help you once again, because the job is not over.
Mhm.
Thank
Michael,
you.
thank you.
World Central Kitchen, CAM Ministries, Samaritan's Purse,
Team Rubicon.
Team Rubicon. I mean,
just goes on.
there's so many organizations besides from private individuals that we just don't miss this opportunity to say such a huge thank you to those guys. They were lifesavers, literally.
Literally. And the job is not done, as you stated. So we can return to do more. God bless you both.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Coming back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking now to Cecile Albury. She is the principal of Lifeway Academy, and she's in the Bahamas. And Cecile, tell us exactly where you are And then let's go through what you recall and remember about Hurricane Dorian hitting your school as well as the island.
Okay, well, I am, the school Lifeway Academy is located in the central part of Marsh Harbor, about a half a mile from the harbor itself. And this area was actually covered in 20 to 30-foot waves of water continuously for several hours. So the water took out whole buildings, took out people, vehicles. It actually came over the opposite side of the harbor into the harbor and then back out again as well. The building that we are actually in had debris up past my head when I stand up around it, and then that had to be cleared, of course. And slowly, over the last 4 years, God has brought portions of the community back. Businesses, people have come back home and helped to rebuild. And the gentleman that owns this building allowed us to start Lifeway in here when no schools were opening. We proposed it, and the government gave us permission. And he allowed us to take up 4 business places that he could have fixed
Wow.
up and rented to start the school.
Wow, that's very generous of him, and I guess one could arguably say that he was looking towards the future
Yes.
of the island and of the people living there. Talk to me about the students and 4 years later, removed from the hurricane. How have they managed to get through, the post-traumatic stress syndrome and everything else that they've had to encounter?
For some of them, there's still, and their families, there's still some stress and delayed reaction because of the fact that loved ones were lost in some cases. For some of them, they have completely been, like for myself as well, our house went. So we had to relocate. A lot of us have lost loved ones since. The way that life was before, it definitely isn't now. And for the students, losing a year and a half to 2 years, because on top of having the hurricane hit us September 2019 and sit on us for 3 days before it moved away, we had COVID. As people were starting to get things going and start returning back home, COVID hit. So then children weren't in school again. And right at that point in Abaco, the schools weren't open. People in the South that did not have the hurricane hit them ended up losing jobs. So for some of us, it was 2 years before we got jobs. So the children are adjusting along with their parents. And those of us who went through the storm, for us here at Lifeway, we're seeking God's guidance and His provision, and He has done that. But it's dealing with the side effects, the behavioral side effects of being home when parents went back to work, and then you had online classes that weren't on, or you didn't have the technology to actually get online to have classes with government schools or whatever. But NGOs coming in, local organizations within the Bahamas, a lot of people, different churches working together have helped in a lot of ways. And right now, some of the pastors that are here are doing counseling. But it's hard sometimes to get people to go for it because they have to admit something's wrong. And when they don't know it, they can't admit it.
You've been through a lot. You're seeing a lot. I mean, I just can't imagine seeing 20 to 30-foot waves from the ocean coming at me and at my community, and having no place to go for cover. There's no high ground there, but yet you're finding some high hopes in the people who have stepped forward to help you and the children and the families. So I've got to ask you, what can Americans do?
Reach out maybe through their churches. There's the First Assemblies of God. There's Brethren churches here, the Catholic Church. There's others, but if they reach out, then those organizations they can send the money directly to and help. We have there's need, like for us, we here at Lifeway, people sent books from all over the world. People sent convoy of hope sent through First Assemblies, 3 containers full of school equipment, and what we couldn't use at Lifeway, other schools got, churches got. And it actually helped 13 other schools be able to have equipment, used equipment, of course, but equipment that they could use. The psychological side of it is something that we need help with, and I don't know if there are organizations out there that could come.
Wow, Cecile, that's such a testament of faith and hope that endures. I've got to ask you, what is your hope for the Bahamas and the fact that you're hoping for Americans and other people around the world to help you? What's your hope for the Bahamas?
For a continued interest from outside to help schools, churches to continue to be able to help the community, because we do have some students who, at this point, from my knowledge, unless it's changed in the last few weeks, living in these igloo, like, it looks like an igloo made out of plastic that people can live, or in some people, there are people living in cars still. Some families are 3 siblings with their parents and their families in a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom because they can't rebuild. Everybody lost their homes. And so with the loss of a livelihood, as people get their jobs back, the hope is that others will come and help them be able to move into their own space and continue to grow and feel that the world hasn't forgotten them. Well, our children, by learning God's word, the Bible tells us to hide it in our hearts, that we won't sin against him, that we can grow and we can do others. And the Bible teaches the children to be kind to other people, to be tenderhearted, be forgiving, to be helpful. And our children are laughing. There are moments when you can see in class, especially like our 3-year-olds and our 4-year-olds, they don't remember. The 5-year-olds, not really. But we do have one in 1st grade that actually got sucked out of his house, and they had to go find him. So he's now telling us, finally talking about that experience. So we're able to help him through that. But they do laugh and they do joke, and the attention span is slowly getting back to where it should be, so that they can do their work, because they lost so much time. But they're a challenge sometimes, but as well, they're blessings, and they bring us joy.
I was talking to you earlier about what you went through, and it's not that I want to relive the past, but where were you when Dorian hit, and where did you end up after Dorian hit?
Well, my husband and I actually stayed with his parents, and when the eye came, we had people that came from houses lower in the community into their house. We ended up with 7 of us there. The neighbors below us ended up with 22 people. During the eye, we were able to climb the hill that was behind us and look down into our neighborhood and see that our house was already being damaged. And we couldn't get down into the neighborhood to check on anybody because the eye was very short. But going through it, when we got back in, the eye passed, a tornado went by, and we thought we were gone, but God didn't take us then. He had a purpose. And the whole town itself, to walk down climb down in the neighborhood during the storm on the Monday when the winds were a little bit less, to try and find my father and my brother and sister-in-law and check on people, to see houses just torn to pieces and everything. Water had come up in there that had never come in a hurricane before, the salt water plus rain. And just not to have that go. It just sat and stayed with us till it started to move about 2 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. It finally started to move away. You couldn't just come out and clean up like we normally did, the next day, and help each other get the roads clean. It was 2 days before, it was Wednesday actually, before people could drive around anywhere, because you had to move debris. You had ships that came from the harbor in and on the land, things like that. But watching the people work as best they could in just the shock and the devastation on people's faces, to know that some friends were gone and we can't find their bodies. That kind of stuff is still hard to comprehend. At the same time, we try to love on each other and encourage each other and pray.
Thank you for sharing that. It really shows just how much faith you have applied to getting through this situation. And I hope all people can remember what you've just discussed with the children, with your personal encounter with this vicious hurricane that lingered and pummeled Abaco, as well as other parts of the Bahamas. But more importantly, just the resiliency and the perseverance that you have. It's quite a test of faith, and I pray that it will get better. And obviously it is, because you're working towards that end. And to the children, let them know that people care here in America about them. And I pray that more organizations like Samaritan's Purse and Convoy of Hope and Compassion International, all of those organizations, and the churches, you mentioned first, the First Assemblies of God, may all of them continue to reach out and contact you and help you. That's what I'm praying for you. Thank you for being on America's Hope. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'd like to thank our guests for enlightening us to the realities of what's happening in the Bahamas. Many people there, as we've seen, are still dealing with the difficulty, reeling from the devastating effects of Hurricane Dorian. Well, each and every one of us can roll up our sleeves and help in some way. And if we can't physically go there, consider how you can donate to help people rebuild their homeland. Until next time, America, keep spreading the hope and the love and the freedom and the peace. Good night.